Hey, welcome back, everybody, to Who's Your Band? Hey, thanks for putting up with us last week. Last week, the interview came from Sean and I in cars because we were running around and things, we just got a little crazy. But we are back in our home studios. Everything is cool. We're excited. Sean, how are you doing, man? You're in the midst of moving.
Yeah, so this is I'm not in my usual space. I don't have my proper lighting, even though my face is gorgeous to begin with. But I don't have proper lighting right now. I'm on a different laptop than I'm used to working off of. This is like bizarro world for me. But I got my microphone, so I'm happy. I managed to steal that from the box.
We hear you find this is the perfect lighting for you. I think
Thanks.
this should be the lighting going forward. Listen, man, are you excited for today?
I am very excited for today because not only do we have an amazing musician, she is also part of one of my favorite bands, the amazing Katie Cole from Smashing Pumpkins.
Katie Cole. How are you, Katie?
I'm really good. Thank you for the lovely introduction. I appreciate it.
Katie, where are you? I hear an Australian accent, but where are you now?
I'm in Nashville.
You're in Nashville. Okay. I thought maybe you were in LA. I wasn't quite sure. So let's get into it a little bit. First thing I want to ask you, listen, man, you do what Sean and I are stand-up comedians. Okay. We're stand-up comedians, we're actors, but we would love to have the talent you have because you are a multi-talented performer, songwriter. So my first question to you really is, what attracted you to music and what do you love about it?
I don't know what attracted me to start with because I sort of grew up with it from a really, really young age. It was always part of like the family. We'd always be listening to music. Like my mom was obsessed with rock and roll, and she still is. It was
your
not.
Parents
It was
musicians?
very well. My dad was a trained classical vocalist who played piano. My mum played piano. She always sort of sang, and there's like artists and musicians apparently right through sort of both family lines. But we grew up with music just kind of being there. So we're never without music, me and my sister. So I don't know. I think I just, it sort of just hit me, I suppose, one day that's something that I love, especially when I was always just obsessed with music. Like I remember one of the very first various artists, whatever we want to call it, cassette tapes that was given to me when I was a really small kid was from the 80s. It was like Hits Huge 1984. And I was like totally obsessed because like all the music was just totally rad. And that sort of stuff stuck with me because like I had to go visit friends and they'd be listening to nothing or watching sports, and I'd just be like, where's the music, you bunch of weirdos?
Now, where was this, Katie? Was this in Australia or was this when you moved to the United States?
No, I grew up in Australia. I've only been in the States for a good handful of years, so I'm still like Australian as Australians can get. But I suppose if I sort of thought it through, I suppose I would think I would probably end up in America at some point. But I never, I suppose young people never really think I'm going to achieve or I'm going to tour the world. You might sort of throw spaghetti at the wall and think big dreams, but then there's also part of you that's like, just be normal and go get a job and stuff. But I grew up like playing live music from sort of the age of 15 in clubs. And that was sort of my part-time job that I was doing while I was at school. So it was already kind of there, and it just sort of, I suppose, just became much more exaggerated, and I just continued onwards and so forth.
Did you have a piano in the house?
Yes.
You did. And would you kind of like noodle around with the piano? And was that the first instrument that you actually learned?
Well, I am self-taught in all instruments, so
unbelievable.
I'm
That's unbelievable.
Free.
Katie, wait, you can't even gloss over that. Holy shit. Yeah. And like, you're good at what you play. So what was the first one you played and what's your best instrument?
Well, the first one I played was definitely piano because it was there. And from a pretty young age, I was sort of teaching myself pieces of music that I was listening to. Like everything was by ear for me. So as I said, I don't read or write music.
Unbelievable.
Just didn't.
You're Elton John.
No.
I'm a self-taught guitar player since the age of 12. and I'm 44, so it's 32 years right now. And I will tell you that without a question, Edward Scissorhands still is a better chance of being a better guitar player to me. I suck so bad.
Nicely put.
Yeah, he does. I'll attest to that. Yeah, he's awesome. He's awful. What did you listen to growing up? So you're a teenage girl, you're 13, 14 years old, and you're noodling around on the piano and maybe playing a little bit of guitar. So what did you listen to? Because I think it's what you listen to. I mean, Sean and I usually say what you listen to as a teenager that becomes your band for life.
Yeah, I reckon that's pretty true. I reckon that you kind of hit the nail on the head there. I was noodling on piano at sort of the age of 11, 12 and just learning stuff by ear, and started playing guitar around sort of 14. And then I want to say properly picked it up again at about 16. And that's when I started playing gigs. So it became I can play one song during this gig that I've got. Yeah, and totally killed that one song, which was probably like a Nirvana song or something with 3 chords anyway. To answer your previous question, my best instrument is probably still my voice, just because it's the one that I've had the most experience with. I'm a vocalist first, and every other instrument comes as a secondary accompanying tool. And I think what I listened to the most growing up was everything. And I'm like really not joking about that. I definitely rated like my mum's music collection, and it was everything from like Aretha to Pink Floyd to Led Zeppelin to Billy Idol to Stevie Wonder.
Jesus Christ, your mom was badass.
Yeah, and I'm definitely who I am because it's definitely in the blood, but having such sort of big and broad genres and songs and bands to listen to was just such a eye and ear opening experience for me, because I was really exposed to rock, soul, a lot of the Beatles. Like, it was just a lot of Brit rock and Brit pop, really, really broad spread. So I got to sort of cherry pick what I liked the most. And I sort of found that I was sort of very, in a pretty young age, sort of going, these are the vocalists that I love the most. These are the songs that I love. And then delving further into that, these are the people that wrote the songs. These are the people that played on the tracks. These are the producers. These are, and I sort of went down that rabbit hole as I got older and older, just trying to work out why I loved things so much.
So do you remember the first concert you went to see? Did that do anything for you? Did that like draw you and say like, after this, this is what I got to do?
No, because again, when you're like 9 or 10 years old and your mum brings you into the lounge room and makes you watch Woodstock and like Isle of Wight, you don't like those boundaries of having like these revelations they're like gone. And she like took us to stuff like seeing, we went and saw musicals like Hair, like it was everything from Hair to 42nd Street. Like she made music an experience for us growing up. So
that's cool.
It was natural for me to then go on and be like, well, I'm going to play gigs as my sort of side job, like on the weekends and stuff like that. It was never like, oh, I'm going to aspire to that. I felt like I was already doing it even before I started gigging. I was always singing, like learning songs. Like me and my sister, we'd like have battles, and everyone would have their music on so loud in the house. We must have driven our neighbors. Is your sister a musician too? No, but she grew up in the same manner that I did. She always sang. Like I feel like she grew up, and she, like when we were young, like when we were kids, like she was the lead singer and I was like the background singer because she was older than me, so she got to sing lead. But of course, because siblings, yay. I'm trying to think of like any like really defining experiences that made me have like those aha moments, but I don't know.
Was it aha?
No, but God love them.
It's a great song.
Oh, tell me about it. And that voice, oh my God.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, I loved from a really young age, I loved like Hendrix and Janis and just people that were just wild and kind of bold. And
yeah, that's a very mature like ear that you had at a young age to really appreciate like those artists.
I think, I mean, I don't know how it is for the youth of today, but like I I was just given
The youth
all
of
these.
today, if it's auto-tuned and there are 50 writers to write the most trite shit, that's what they'll listen to. They'll listen to the fucking Weekend. Stop.
I like the Weekend.
Of course you do.
He's a
You
great
should be in a
artist.
boy band.
He's a
You
great
should be in a
artist.
boy band, you.
Oh, that's awesome.
Katie, has anyone ever told you that you look like a much skinnier, more pleasant version of Adele?
Oh, it's a good call.
Adele is skinny now. Have you not? I mean,
Yeah, but I go back to fat, broken-hearted Adele. I don't want to hear the skinny Adele right now.
Yes.
I've been told that once before, but I think it was just somebody on social media. I don't think it was anybody. Like, I've got the memory of somebody saying it, but I don't think it was a friend. I think it was like a fan going, "You look like a thing," and I think that was it. But I'll take it. I'll take it. Adele is incredible.
You're pretty incredible because the artists that you've worked for are so vast and range in so many different genres. So one that comes to mind is, how the hell did you wind up working with Gloria Gaynor and writing for Gloria Gaynor? Sean, you know who she is. I Will Survive, man.
I know who
she's
Gloria
a
Gaynor
giant.
is.
She's a giant. So how did that collaboration come about?
Well, I suppose in Australia, I never really found my outlet in Australia for doing my music. It just didn't. I mean, I know a lot of Australian acts have kind of, broken out of the. We're not a prison colony anymore, but they've broken out of the country and they've had success elsewhere. But at the time when I was there and just trying to sort of make it happen, I just couldn't find anybody that was doing anything that was close to what I do now, which is Americana, sort of more Americana singer-songwriter stuff. Australia was only sort of giving a voice to those that were doing very indie music. So I sort of fell into.
I saw that in your bio about Americana. I wanted to ask you about that. So just so we were kind of clear on that, Americana, would you say that's kind of like John Mellencamp style, Tom Petty? Would you say that would be considered Americana?
I like to, I mean, I can't remember if somebody said it to me or whether I thought of it myself. I get those things confused sometimes, but I think of Americana as a genre as kind of all the other genres, or like all the other misfit genres that don't belong in pop, rock, country, and R&B. Like everything else that's kind of, that is either classic, like what you're saying, kind of classic rock feeling or classic timeless feeling or bluegrass or folk, like that all kind, or, old country or blues, like a lot of those things now fall under the Americana banner. So if you look in the Americana charts or album sections, if you're in a music store, you'll see, Bonnie Raitt next to Tom Petty, next to Brandy Carlisle. It's kind of this mishmash of of artists. But like I like to think of it as just like what you said, like John Mellencamp's a great example, just really classic songs that you like tell the story of. If you want to say tell the story of America, that's great. But I just think people that tell great stories, because
I think his Scarecrow album, to me, exemplifies Americana, because he's really talking about the plight of the American farmer and living in the Midwest. So, yeah. So I'm sorry. So you, Gloria Gaynor.
Well, I fell into the songwriter role. I mean, I suppose I'm an artist because I'm a songwriter. If you can do that math, it's very complex, obviously. But I'm a songwriter first, and I always wanted to tell stories and other people's stories. So me being a songwriter, I started writing for a lot more artists in Australia, and also that fell into writing for artists in Europe. So there was some artists in the UK, some artists in Germany. And I found it was a production team I was working with in Germany that were doing a collaboration with Gloria Gaynor. And I sent them a few songs of mine that I'd written, and that was the one they wanted to work with for Gloria. So I never had direct, there was always like that. And again, I was very young at the time. I was probably, 20 or 21 when I wrote stuff for her. But like there's always been a lot of middle people that not necessarily block me from the situation, but when you're young, you don't stumble across stars and icons on your own. There's always somebody that introduces you or some situation that you're brought into. But I fell into writing for all these dance and pop acts and strange countries and talking with producers that like their ability to speak English was just awful. I remember sending a demo to somebody in the Netherlands at one point, and the comment that came back via email was like, "You sing and I have pink elephants in my eyes." that was literally in the email. And I was like, this is gonna get good. I've been really lucky to obviously work with, obviously people like Gloria, and moved to America. And one of the first people I started touring with was Glen Campbell, and then brought into the studio to sing some stuff on.
How do you go from Australia? I'm just going to move to the United States. I'm going to tour with, again, another Americana legend.
Well, obviously it was just that simple. I just, I did like every Hollywood movie. I just landed.
To you, Sean? Has any luck like that? Never happens. Never happens.
That is a great story. It's kind of like, I landed, I got my bags, and I just made a phone call, and it was like, hey, Willie Nelson, I don't want to work with you. Why don't you call Glenn and see if he needs a background singer?
Yeah. You nailed it. That's exactly what happened. But for the sake of story, I'll make some creative corrections to the story. But I basically was talking back and forth with my current record producer. He, as I said, I was starting to get at how I read liner notes, and I like to know why I like things. And
I used to like doing that too, by the way. Read all the liner notes. That's how I actually got a job. My very first job working in the record industry, working for CBS Records.
Oh, there you go. Because you paid attention to all the the details, right?
That's right.
I've always wanted to know why I liked things, so I always paid attention. And there was always like a good few handful of songwriters and a couple of few producers that I just paid attention to. When a name, it's like if you're reading something and a name just keeps popping up to you, and you're like, pay attention to that. And one of those names was a producer called Howard Willing, because he worked on Counting Crows and OK Go and Macy Gray. And I just kept seeing his name pop up as either a producer role or an engineer. And I was like, really, like, these were really eclectic artists from like, and again, worked with Smashing Pumpkins. And that's how I'll get into that story and coming up after the break. But I was asked, would you ever come to Los Angeles to start working together with me and Howard? And I was like, I never had a reason to go to Los Angeles prior, because again, living in Australia, you're not, much like what was said before, you don't just go, I'm just going to get on a plane and that's not really what happens in reality. But I now had a reason to go to LA and actually start sort of digging into my career, something for me this time, not just as the songwriter. So, after, a few months of, communication and all that sort of stuff, I got on a plane and made a couple of trips to Los Angeles to start sort of recording, and then worked out I had to move just because I saw the cogs just started turning. I realized that, things were real, and like this was a real place. It wasn't just like in the liner notes anymore. It wasn't just like a studio name. It was like, this is what it looks like. This is what Sunset Sound looks like.
How surreal was that?
Oh, absolutely mind-blowing, just because, I don't know, you read the history involved in a lot of these studios and people and places. It's like, all the references, even just like looking back at like, Hollywood movies or episodes of The Simpsons, it's like certain references make more sense once you've actually been to the place and you're like, what did I think that was about before? Like,
yeah, I remember going to LA the first time and doing the same thing, like listening to like stupid things like, Girls, Girls, Girls by Motley Crue. And I would drive down Sunset Boulevard and I would see all the strip clubs they're talking about, or, Tom Petty's Free Fall, and one of my favorite songs. I actually went to Reseda just to see what Reseda looked like. So it's just, it's a very different area out there.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. But it's like exactly what you said. Once you actually see the place and marry it to the song or the thing that you've got in your head, you're like, oh, my God, it just takes on a whole other dimension. So I'm really, I was obviously very fortunate to have a really good touchstone to be in Los Angeles with. And as soon as I started sort of working in the studio, it was like, I've got to move. So, that's made all those fun decisions in my life, and was like, okay, well, I'm just going to leave Australia and just go to America and see what happens. A huge leap of faith and a lot of gutsy decisions and strange,
you got to take risk.
Thing to, yeah. And it is risky,
risk, right? The bigger the risk, the greater reward. What was Glen Campbell like as a guitar player, watching and working with him every night?
Well, incredible. Like, I don't think that even sums it up. But I always knew about his music, just because it's Glen Campbell, like, duh. But as I sort of got to work with him and obviously do some shows with him, and then was in the studio with him, Howard very much took me aside and was just like, you should really look into not only his back catalogue, but look into his work as working as a guitarist for like the Wrecking Crew. And he kind of gave me that.
That's right. He was part of that famous studio musician group, the Wrecking Crew.
Exactly.
Right. And then wound up being in the Beach Boys for a little bit.
Exactly. It was just like those things where you're like, oh, and the more you learn, and then again, more rabbit holes, lots of rabbit holes everywhere, apparently. But yeah, it was just very overwhelming, to work out not just, okay, he's an incredible artist and whatever, but just what the legend and icon that he really was, and that he was also that secret sort of player in those songs, and we played on like Strangers in the Night and, Pet Sounds and all those, just these huge records. And you're just like, oh my God.
That is
crazy.
Insane. Pet Sounds.
Yeah.
One of the top 5 albums of all time.
Yeah.
You're working with this guy side by side. Was this right before he got sick?
I don't really know the timing involved, because I wasn't told whether he was having any symptoms or anything like that at the time.
But you didn't notice anything?
No, not really. I mean, just because he's older, and when you're on stage, there were sort of stage notes and things like that. But he wasn't so bad when I was touring with him. I did notice some things. I think it was a year or two later when I saw him play when his children joined the band to be musicians in the band, and I saw him play. I think it was at I want to say it was at Staples Center, but I can't remember, in Los Angeles. And he would say something, and then like they do a song, do another song, and then he'd say the exact same comment, like he hadn't said those. And it was just, but it was at the same time, it was just kind of. It was beautiful at the same time, because at that time it was out that he was experiencing Alzheimer's and all that stuff. So the audience were very much on the same page with him. It was kind of.
That was smart, and it was incredibly courageous. And we throw around the word brave, but in my opinion, I think he really was kind of brave to be that vulnerable to his audience.
Yeah.
The documentary they did on him too was just amazing.
Oh, it's fantastic.
To watch that.
Yeah. Really, 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 really great. But I felt, obviously, I'm very lucky to have been involved in that, and just watching him right up until the end. Like if he was on. Out came that voice and those like guitar solos. It was just autopilot. It was just there, and you'd just be like.
Yeah, there's a known
incredible
thing that people who have Alzheimer's will have. Like a certain part of their brain will trigger. And unfortunately, I know people who do have it or have had it, and they'll remember certain parts of their life completely fluid 100%. And then they won't know the person's next to them's name, but with him, the musical part really kept him going, because, you can see even from the movie, he was, there was times where he was really out of it. And then once that guitar was in his hand, it was over. That was it.
Yeah. Yeah, really, really just, very bittersweet.
So, Katie, we know that you work and you tour with Smashing Pumpkins. What is that like, and what's it like to work with Billy Corgan?
I'll just give one-word answers. Great. No, I'm kidding.
I always think of Billy as one of the once in a lifetime musicians. I liken him to like a Bowie, a Prince, even like a Michael Jackson to a point.
Yeah.
I can remember. I remember. Yeah, he really is, because I've been a fan of his since the Gish album, since high school. So I remember a friend of mine got to interview him out at his house in LA years ago. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, he was living in his pool house at the time. And it was something weird, but he walked in to interview him and he saw like 20 different Mac computers going that were all just like hooked up to different recording devices. He's just like this.
This story would have been so much better if you said they were hooked up to different porn sites. That would have been such a different twist on this.
But you know what it is? Like he's just one of those people that you could just tell exudes music. And like, there's just no limit to this guy.
Yeah,
right.
He doesn't stop.
Great. That's right. No limit.
Yeah, there's no limit. But here's a question I wanted to ask you before we even get into that. Has he helped you contribute to your solo stuff?
Good question.
Indirectly, yes. I mean, he's always been very supportive of what I do. And I definitely take inspiration from his songwriting. And again, once you learn, like I sort of cut my teeth, as I said, playing live, but like I was playing covers in Australia, and it was, 3 to 5 gigs a week, 3 to 4 hour shows. Like it was tremendous job that I did for a long time. And the more you learn other people's material, the more that you can see why a song takes on the form that it does, why a chord progression is great, why a melody is great, why something that seems simple can just be intoxicating. So pulling apart Smashing Pumpkins songs to learn them, you definitely learn more about the songwriting capabilities. Again, I totally agree with you in terms of the comparison to Prince and Bowie and those types of people, just because Billy Corgan, and the Smashing Pumpkins have had that ability to grow, to pivot, to change,
Sure.
to take their own direction from their own direction, and just be like, we've done that already. Let's go over here and do this now. Oh, we've done that now. Let's go over here. Oh, we haven't done that in a while. Let's go back and do that some more. Like
That's true.
just to kind of lead and pave the way for themselves and for other artists to be sort of courageous creatively. But I definitely I've learned more indirectly what I can do with songs, and also from a leadership perspective too, watching how him and the other guys in the band really command what they do as a performer, but also just as a business person. A lot of the time, I mean, my relationship with the Smashing Pumpkins has really been about 5 years, maybe a little bit longer than that now. My first opening show was in 2014, and then touring with them started in 2015, then 2016, then 2018, 2019.
How did that all come about?
Oh, it was just an ad. It was just an ad in the paper.
And it's a two-part question. How did it come about? And were you a fan of Smashing Pumpkins prior?
Yes. I mean, of course I was a fan. Everyone's a fan. I mean, everybody, even if they don't know, you play them a couple of songs and they'll be like, oh yeah, I like that. I grew up, as I said, playing a lot of covers. So I'd covered their material in various
what songs did you like playing? What songs do you like playing now?
Oh, I've learned so many of their songs now. It really, people ask me all the time, but you never know which is like your favorite song of each concert or each tour until you sort of finish each night. But I don't know. I always like kind of the more ballady sort of songs, like To Sheila. I like, I don't know. It really depends, because.
Do you like Disarm?
Yeah. I love Disarm. I mean, I also like Dada. No, I'm kidding.
You know what I love about them? It's got to be very hard as a musician too, especially for you to like, when you have a band who has such a ridiculous catalog, but the catalog is so different. Like they're a different band from doing I Am One and Cherub Rock to the new stuff like Sear. It's just a completely different band, and how they can just turn on a dime and go, let's do that now. More of a hard rock grunge in the beginning, and then it went more experimental, but it's a completely different band than it was 30 years ago.
I think so too, but at the same time, I think it's like dialing it in. Like the more you do something, the more you can dial in like your ability to do something and do it deliberately instead. That's really something that comes with time, and obviously artists like Bowie, is being a great example of going, I know my thing now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do this strange, beautiful thing deliberately now. And still being creative and taking chances. Like that's really special. But I mean, I've been very, very blessed to be brought into the situation, which is something that, Billy Corgan was aware of who I was just from my relationship working with Howard, because Howard Willing is a longtime collaborator for the Smashing Pumpkins. He was involved in Machina and Adore right through to the current material. He's just been one of those tried and true. He's one of those. He's just up in the family. He, like, Billy knew who I was and was like, just he was asking Howard, like, would Katie open a show, like an acoustic show for me? And it sort of started and sort of spiraled out of control.
I'm sorry, you say you opened for them first?
I opened for one show for Billy. Originally, it was just a one-off sort of solo-ish show in Chicago, and he knew who I was, and like, again, me being more Americana, opening for an alternative rock sort of situation, like me in my gut, I was just like, is this going to be good or is this going to be terrible? Like, are the fans going to like hate me? Are they going to like, I just thought I'm just going to do my thing.
You're fearless in what you do. Look at what you've told us already. You boarded a plane, you came over here, you really took things head on.
Yeah.
So this wouldn't intimidate you, right?
Well, it still does. I mean, it doesn't, but it does. I mean, everything is scary and amazing. Like if it's something you're not familiar with, then, I just sort of, took into account the fact that, I've been performing live for a billion years. I'm used to this. It's just winning over a different type of crowd and knowing what to do with those people and telling them the right stories that they may be interested in hearing. And I mean, the show went really well, and it was followed up by the next year, Billy asking if I wanted to open a acoustic/electric tour that the Smashing Pumpkins were doing. And I'm like, yeah, I'm free that day, whatever that is. But then it became, well, do you also want to play bass on this tour? And I'm like, I play guitar. Bass is guitar, pretty much. That's where my brain went with it. Like I've got a pretty solid metronome in my brain. Just having played live for forever. I was like, yeah, I'll do that too. So that became and you don't know until you start sort of digging into the songs and you're like, can I even do this? Like, what have I agreed to? But it was obviously all in my best interest to just be brave and just kind of do it. And I that particular tour, because I was opening the show, people were learning my songs, and then being on stage with the band, it's like the audience put the two together and did the math and went, oh, like there's more to this. So I garnered a lot of fans on that first tour that have stayed with me right through to today. I don't know why, but then the next tour that I did, that was the following year, Jimmy Chamberlain came back on drums.
How was that being part of the rhythm section with such an amazing drummer like Jimmy Chamberlain?
Absolute monster.
Is he the best drummer you ever played with?
I don't know if you can say best or whatever. I mean, there's so many drummers out there that are just exceptional. He is he's an exceptional beast. It's hard because sometimes you'll be playing bass with a drummer. It's a very locked down experience. Whereas you might also just be singing a song and listening to a drummer, and you've got the ability to really hear more of what they're doing rather than just trying to just sit there and go for the ride. Because
I think his drumming in Tonight is one of the most underrated thing I've ever heard.
Yeah, and there's this really it's a really unique combination when Billy and Jimmy sort of, I mean, they usually, like, you think of it of the engine of a band to be the bass and drums, but it's always been Billy and Jimmy, I think. And they when you play with them and watch what they do live, to the stuff that isn't to like a track that has maybe a few extra parts on there, like some, strings or whatever. When you listen to the way that they do what they do live, they've got this amazing, unique sort of ebb and flow of, like, they know exactly when they're going to speed up in a section or slow down together. And you're just kind of going for this incredible ride with them, and they feed off each other. It's just I've never been in a situation to watch these two musicians that know it's like breathing together. They know exactly what they're doing within the song. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And was James just kind of like hang out there and look cool?
Well, on that tour, James came in for the Los Angeles show, the Chicago show, and the New York shows. So I was sort of when this was 2016, and I'm on bass, and I'm sort of, again, doing the math, but in a different way, going, okay, this band is sort of reuniting on stage in front of my eyes, and the audience are getting to experience that because James had been absent from the band for quite a while. So watching that happen while I'm on stage and going, oh, this is like a holy crap moment. This is something special here. And
how do you keep it together?
I don't know. Basically, you're just on stage and you just kind of have to just breathe and just be. I've always been that person that's tried to make it my sort of MO to be on stage and be in the moment. Because it's like there's been times where, again, I step out into the floor and the rhyme, and And on that particular tour in 2016, I was singing a couple of songs lead because Billy wanted me to. He's like, I want you to sing this song and I want you to sing this song. So I'm in these iconic theaters singing something and going, how did I get here? And you can't do that in the moment. You can't be that stuck in your own head or not in them. You have to just be there and just totally just let it. And then afterwards, then you can reflect and be like, oh my God, how did I get through that? How did I not like totally bugger up this song or that song or whatever it is? But I've learned to sort of just be really, grateful for the experiences that I've been getting. And, literally every tour that I've done with the band, I've been like, oh, this is the last, just again, being grateful for being like, this is, if I never get to do this again, blah, 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 blah. And I'm not being pessimistic. I'm just being honest because I'm in a very unique position being a touring musician, but not a dedicated member. It's not like, I think I know by now that they're very loyal to the people that they work with and they stick within sort of a tight sort of unit of here's these people, here's these musicians, here's these collaborators, and they tend to work with the same people. And it's really just to achieve that. Even if they change directions, it's still got this familiar feeling about it, the songs and all that stuff. But, I do that tour and then move on to, okay, now do you want to play keys on this tour? And I'm like, all right, I'll do that too. Again, I'm free. Whatever you want to do. You want to play some arenas? I'll be there.
I got a message from a fan. Okay. His name is Tom Borowski. And he asks, when you perform the song 1979, okay, do you know all the lyrics?
Well, I do now. I mean, I'd always known them, but you sort of, a lot of Billy Corgan's lyrics are very complex and it's very easy to be like, oh, that's totally the wrong verse, or oh, that I forgot this chorus is different because like I've learned with Smashing Pumpkins as opposed to other bands, a verse isn't a verse isn't a verse and a chorus isn't a chorus. It's like it's not necessarily the same thing every time. Like a lot of bands, you get to the chorus and you can Bon Jovi your way through it or whatever. But this band, you've got to pay attention. As I said,
just coined a phrase.
Yes, you feel free to steal it from me. It's yours. You guys are New Jersey, correct?
Yeah.
Sean is from New Jersey. I'm in New York.
You're in New York. I was just going to say, like, if he's your boy, then feel free to steal it. But I sort of worked out a long time ago that you have to pay attention while you not that you don't pay attention, but you have to be there in the moment, or you'll forget this key change is happening, or you'll forget that this verse is a bar shorter than the last verse or whatever. Those things happen in my brain in real time. Even if you're think you're having a moment with the crowd, it's like, pay attention. No matter how well you know songs, you can't really go on autopilot to play these songs. But yeah, on keys, playing in an arena, like, how did I get? I'm at Madison Square Garden. Like how, what's happening?
Amazing.
Well, it really is amazing. But for me, knowing that you live in Nashville, and for me, when I walked into the Ryman Auditorium, it was like a complete magical experience for me. What was it like just being there as a musician?
Well, nuts, because I mean, I'd been there to see shows, previous to, playing at the Ryman. And, it's that definitely as a singer-songwriter, that's one of those few sort of key venues that you sort of aspire to. One day I'm going to play the Mother Church and one day, but to be like, okay, well, I'm out here. I'm singing. This isn't a song that's my song, but this is a song that I'm able to sing here and perform here. And you have those moments. If I never get to step foot onto this stage as a musician or as anything ever again, enjoy this moment. You got to this moment. This is your moment. Still own it as much as you can. It's like having the ticket for the event, but also being a tourist in the event all at the same time. Like you're here, you earned it, but it's still this sort of joint experience. So I don't know, I've just always tried to just be humble about it.
And as an Americana songwriter, though, you really are living in the absolute greatest city in the world, because it's nothing. New York and LA have that stupid vibe, it's that stupid snooty vibe. But for me, Nashville is the key to music songwriting in America.
Well, I was living in LA, and I started making regular trips out to Nashville just because I heard that it was like sort of, music city. And like I heard like, that the best songwriters in the world all lived in Nashville, or they wrote in Nashville, or went to Nashville to get their songs. And again, being the songwriter, I'm like, well, I should go there. So I started booking trips out there and meeting people and writing and playing shows and playing songwriter rounds and, playing, the Bluebird Cafe and those types of places. And, it really wasn't, I suppose I should have put the two things together and gone, I probably should move here. But I've been in Nashville now for, I think almost 5 years. I don't know. But I don't know. And again, last year didn't count, so whatever. So it didn't count
Jeff,
for anything.
The Bluebird Cafe is like the equivalent for the Comedy Cellar for us.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Where it's like, you can go there one night and like, Chappelle will drop in. Like if you go to the Bluebird Cafe on a random Tuesday night, you might see Taylor Swift just pop in to like, she's working out a new song and she just wants to pop it in, or like a Kenny Chesney will pop in, or a Luke Bryan, these major people. And I remember going down there. I couldn't even get in. It was like a Tuesday night at like 4:00, and like it was the whole night was completely sold out. You couldn't even get into this place. Yeah, it's just one of those just magical places.
And there's a couple of those venues now in town that like any given night you might find, one of those country music artists just on stage playing a song. Obviously, times are a bit different now because COVID and whatever. Sure. And one day we'll return to normal.
Speaking of that, how are things in Nashville now? Are things opened up a little bit? Is there limited indoor shows going on? What's happening in your career and in Nashville?
Well, I restricted myself for last year to doing only online shows just because you read so many of these stories about like all these COVID sort of long haulers that get sick and then keep being sick. And again, being a singer, I'm like, if I was to lose lung capacity, hearing, or anything like that, or be foggy and like all these long-term symptoms, I'm like, my career is literally done.
Sure.
I need to not put myself in any sort of position like that. So some restaurants opened, like I got asked to play, not a whole lot of shows, but a good number of shows in Nashville, and just didn't feel confident about accepting those. Other people played these shows and took my spot and blah, 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 but I didn't feel so good about it. So I restricted myself to doing monthly online shows on a platform called Stage It. So I made it sort of, because I knew everyone else is going nuts, not being able to go to shows and not being able to see their favorite bands, or having tickets all refunded, or like, what happened for the first sort of 6 months of so-and-so's been postponed to da-da-da-da date. And obviously, and then those postponed dates get postponed again. I knew that was happening to everybody. So I'm sort of immediately sort of jumped into the role of, well, what can I do to create, not just get online and be like, hey guys, here's my song, just to create some sort of experience for people sure. That are wanting to hear music and also wanting to, communicate, because that's really the thing. Being isolated makes you nuts, and it's just, just saying something to somebody or having some sort of feeling of, being understood by someone else or having a moment. Those moments were gone. That was sort of stolen from all of us. So doing all these online shows has been sort of that savior. And I did a lot of shows where it was like mostly by request, and I made them themed. So I did like soul and 80s and 90s and 70s and
it's a great idea.
Throwing in a few of my songs here and there, but just making it more like, these shows are for you guys. Here you go. Here are your shows. What do you want to hear? We're doing a 90s theme.
Oh, that's awesome.
Just stuff like that.
That's really great. What a great idea.
Just to keep it going, because none of us knew that it would last this long, and then it's still going.
It really sucks. Me and Jeff are comics. So I will say very freely, Jeff has been working a lot more than I have, because I made that decision. I had a very weird experience. The last time I did a road gig, I had a guy literally come up to me this close with no mask on and start talking to me, and I freaked out. And I've not been one of those people who has been like, I'm not going to be able to get it. Like, I was very careful for everything, but I made that decision. I haven't worked in 2 months.
Yeah.
And it's just, and of course I'm itching, I'm dying to get on stage, but I keep telling everybody who's asking me when you get to perform, I'm like, this is not an hourglass where you turn it over And when the sand runs out, that's it, you're done. It's going to come back. And for the people who are doing it, fantastic. But, you know, you have to worry. There's bigger things in music, and there's bigger things than jokes.
Yeah, exactly. You know? I just didn't want to be in that position like yourself, like to be at risk and I'm just like, what else can I do? And of course, like yourself, itching to get back out there and play something with anybody or anything. But, you know, we've got thankfully for guys like you and other people that have had me on their podcasts and me doing live streams. It's something. It's not exactly the same as, it would never be exactly the same as being live and having the, you know, even if it's just like the weird room sound and weird noises and random things and somebody yells something, someone drops a thing, those, or chatter, or, you know, I make sure that to make it sort of part of the thing of when I'm playing a live stream, I'll make sure like I constantly tell people, you know, clap emojis or something, do something after I finish a song, so that it's like, even though it's silence, and that's the weirdest thing when you finish a song or finish a thing, that it's just like.
Yeah, it's very strange.
No, it's very strange.
Yeah, we do a lot of Zoom comedy shows, so we completely understand that. And it's even on a little weirder level, because, you know, you expect to hear clapping after a song is done, but you expect to hear laughter after a joke is said. And when you're not hearing it, you don't know if you're doing well. You don't. Yeah. It's great for us, but it's also screwing with our heads a little bit too, because we have to assume that we're doing really well.
I am funny.
I say what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Oh, totally.
Katie, are you writing more now that you have a little bit more downtime? Do you find yourself coming up with more songs? Are you doing that to kind of keep busy?
I'm probably not writing as much as what some people are. Like, I tend to write my best when I'm in my best frame of mind. Like, I'm not one of those writers that goes through something devastating or a breakup or whatever and it's like, I'm going to write that. I have to be clear and then decide the story that I want to tell. And as you've probably experienced as well as I have, it's like most of last year was spent with some level of anxiety. You know, even if it's like, I always call it like sort of low grade anxiety. So if you think of like having a headache or a migraine, it's just kind of like the 1 to 2 out of 10 on a daily basis. It's like having white noise in your brain. So having that sort of just little bit of anxiety and stress and worries about career, money, work, whatever it is that you're worried about, or just being outside and so-and-so sick, or I heard this, whatever that is, that keeps my mind sort of a bit foggier than what I would like to be in the best creative state to write. But I've sort of worked through that. Obviously, we've all had enough time / too much time to work through how we deal with our day-to-day experiences and how we've readjusted and reestablished relationships with work or with social media or whatever it is that we're doing to make sure that we're being healthy mentally.
Sure.
And not just mental. But I suppose I've been writing a little bit more recently just because I feel it's a bit more inspired to do so because my mindset's in a certain positive place. But I've still had other sessions that I've done for other people, like backing vocal sessions or vocal sessions or a key session or a bass session, whatever it is people are wanting me to do as a collaborative experience. So I've still been working and doing a lot of studio stuff, still recording my stuff, demoing songs that I literally found like in closets and cupboards and hard drives. And I'm like, oh my God, I've just found all these new songs that I've totally forgot I had. I should do something with them. So I have like quite a bit of new music coming out this year, stuff that I hadn't released yet, but also stuff that I'm working on at the moment. So I just want to make sure that I'm still putting new music out there. I won't be doing what the Smashing Pumpkins do and drop like, here's like 20 songs. That's right. I can't afford to just drop like that many songs at the same time. I like to have like, here's one, pay attention to this, and here's another one. Now pay attention to this. Like I like to make it a bit more of a focused effort. And I'm thankful.
I heard this great quote that I wanted to get your opinion on, being a songwriter. I just heard it the other day, and it stuck with me. It was, a good songwriter can make you feel something they felt, but a great songwriter can make you feel something they never felt.
Oh, I love that. That's great.
Yeah.
I like that. It's
quote,
very,
isn't it?
yeah, it's really
great.
It's really deep. And that's
Yeah,
it's
a
very,
little too
very
deep for
accurate.
this fucking podcast. Let me just tell you.
No, it's just the right. It's much deeper than it's much deeper than I definitely expected. But it's very true, and I feel that way about a lot of art. Like it doesn't matter what your art form is, whatever your creative needs are. Like whatever you do. I mean, I learned a lot, especially from my producer, who like I'd play him songs sometimes, and I'd think that it was like super dark and disturbing, like this lyric's too much, like maybe I should dial it back and put a happy ending in it. And he would tell me things like, no, you need to go further, or now you've scratched the surface of this story, go even further, tell the rest of that story. And and I've learned that when you have that emotional connection, like you were saying, like you can tap stuff in people's hearts and minds that maybe they haven't experienced, haven't thought about, or even if it's just that moment of empathy of, oh my God, somebody else has gone through this, oh my God, that person knows how I feel. Those are always those things that I strive towards as a songwriter. So again, yes, I'm always writing songs, but those really great songs that you come up with, those are still, no matter how, like you might write 10 songs in a month or in a week or whatever it is, whatever your numbers are, but maybe only 1 to 10% of those songs are like those ones that you're like, oh, that makes me feel something. Or I'll go back to like a work tape or a rough demo and I'll be like, no, I still feel something from that song. There's something there.
Katie, who do you like as a songwriter? Sorry, Sean. I think we asked the same question, right? Yeah, because we're thinking alike now. That's scary. Yeah. Who do you like as songwriters? Is it Springsteen, Bob Dylan? Is it someone off the charts that we wouldn't be thinking about?
I suppose it's like asking you guys. I mean, it's not the same thing because music is sort of the soundtrack to so much stuff. But it's similar to asking you guys like who your favorite comedians are, because you never really come up with one answer, because a lot of what you do and what you've become is this sort of, again, this collaboration in your brain or in your subconscious of who you want to be based on things that you've experienced or shoes that you've walked in. And for me, again, having learned thousands of songs in my life, some of those bits just go in there and go into your brain of why that chord progression works, why I like this melody, juxtaposing these chords, or why I'll think of like a song title and it will mean something to me, so much so that I'll come back to it and be like, I want to base an entire song around this song title because there's something special in it. Why? I don't know, but it's something special to me and I know what to do with it. My favorite songwriters have always been those people that have sparked sort of, again, like what you were saying, levels of inspiration that I didn't know were necessarily there. So for me, obviously I grew up with, my love affair with music probably started with the Beatles, like everyone else in the entire universe. But, I went into all those areas. Again, you heard all those people that I listed as references when I was listening to music when I was young. They all went in. It was, Otis Redding and Stevie Wonder, but also classical music. And there was Chopin. And there was like, it all kind of just went in the blender in my brain. And instead of making some disaster, it made some delicious smoothie.
it's
worst analogy ever.
No, it's a great.
No, that's a great one.
I liken myself to the same thing because my musical taste goes all over the map. I mean, one of my favorite songwriters is Chris Stapleton.
He's great. Yeah,
he's an amazing guy. But
from the heart.
As far as lyricists go, there's a band called Hatebreed, which is a New England hardcore band who writes. He writes some of the most amazing, uplifting lyrics, but you'd never know because he's growling through the whole thing. So as long as it invokes an emotion, exactly. I feel it's, as long as it's not auto-tuned, that's all that matters to me.
It's got to touch you and it's got to be real.
Yeah.
And what the thing is, we've been interviewing you for about 50 minutes now. And Sean, tell me if I'm wrong on this. We felt that we said this when we were talking to Mitch Malloy, who's also a fellow Nashville guy down there. But I get the feeling that you are completely authentic. You are who you are. Like you're in music for the right reasons. You're writing songs because they're real, not because you're trying to put out some type of drivel. You're putting out something that is heartfelt, And to me, whether it be country, pop, metal, rock and roll, soul, I think that's all you expect and want out of your songwriters. Something to be real, something to be authentic, something not to just be manufactured.
Yeah, very, very much so. You're very, very accurate. Like I appreciate you saying that too, because I I don't think you can try to be authentic. You just have to be honest. And like honesty is really hard. Honesty about who you are, what you want to do, why you're doing it, your own experiences in life and how they've affected you. Like I used to avoid like certain subjects in writing songs. Like I used to try and always find like the good way to spin the thing because it makes for the better story. It makes for the more uplifting, say, Tom Petty song, to think of like the more positive take of things. But then the other part of your brain goes, you know what? Don't be afraid to go there, quote unquote, there. Just go there. Just see what else is there. And like I started, as soon as I started sort of writing songs and letting myself experience what I was experiencing, like going through, okay, not just here's this heartbreak or here's some grief or here's a terrible song about alcoholism. Like I just wrote the stories and just went, oh, this is, and when they hit you right and when they hit you in the heart, like when you've done enough rewrites and the lyric is exactly the story that it needs to be, matching the melody, matching the music, and everything blends together, that's when it's like, oh, this is not only is this good enough for me, like I'm not cutting any corners as a songwriter, I'm not cutting any corners as a musician or as a performer, like it's the right vocal performance, it's the right song, it's the right lyric. Other people are going to notice when you're being sort of, when you're not editing, you know what I mean? When you're not editing out all those things.
I do. I know what song you just made me think of when you talk about laying it online, being vulnerable, going there. You remember the Neil Young song, The Needle and the Damage is Done?
Oh, I know the lyric. I can't think of the song though.
Oh man, it's a song about heroin addiction.
Yeah.
And he went there, and it's a song you would think, why would I listen to it? And then when you listen to it, like, how do I not listen to this? It's just so good. Before we wrap up, Katie, you opened some shows for the band America, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Were you on the tour when they played in Staten Island at a place called the St. George Theater?
No, it was just in California.
Oh, okay.
But that were great.
Okay, yeah. Talk about Americana and great songwriters. America.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I've been so lucky to, again, I took that leap of faith. I moved to Los Angeles to work with Glen Campbell and my producer, Rangel Christopherson, to sing on a song on one of my 2014 record, to then work with the Smashing Pumpkins. And I mean, like you guys might be aware, I spent like a good chunk of last year. I wrote almost all of the background vocal arrangements for the Sear record that came out. So it wasn't just like me singing on it. I was creating these parts, these really thick vocal extreme sort of parts. So,
which, by the way, is my favorite Pumpkins album in a very long time.
Is that you?
That was my alarm. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Sean.
I probably need to stop talking now. It's probably that's like the play it off music.
No, you know what it was? I'll be very honest with you. You want to know the truth?
No. Okay, go.
I'm addicted to this new clothing company called Dixon Flannel.
Oh God.
Okay. And they put out a shirt in 5 minutes, which is why I set my alarm, because I'm a little bit of a diva and I have to buy it right away.
How are you not on RuPaul's Drag Race? My God.
That's amazing. Look, you can blame it. I'd say just blame it on the pandemic. Blame it on the pandemic. Okay, you can be like, well, since lockdown, I've got to have some new things to do. This is something I'm going to do.
I have to model my new flannel shirts.
Well, I look forward to seeing them. Seeing a new shirt in one of your future podcasts.
Well, hopefully we'll wear it the next time we see you come around, when a real concert comes around in New York, and we'll see you guys at MSG. Hopefully.
Oh my God. I just can't wait.
Find you, and how could our fans become your fans?
Well, most of the stuff, obviously, because we all live online, I'm mostly in two dimensions online. My main website is katiecoleofficial.com, but almost all of my social handles are Katie Cole Official, except Twitter, which Twitter is Katie Cole Music, and they're all verified. So if you see the check mark, it's like, that's actually me. Well, it's actually me. It's not some random imposter that kind of is just stealing all my content. But I do have some new music coming out next month. And I have an online show coming out Feb 6th that's on Stage It as well. I always have something going on. I'm starting up my YouTube again. I took a break for a few months just to kind of like put my brain back together again. But I always do series on YouTube as well, just because people, people sometimes will stumble across a cover and you go down the rabbit hole of going like, what else has she got? And then literally lose an hour because they're listening to music. But if you find me in one place, you'll find me just about everywhere. But almost everything's Katie Cole official.
Guys, check out Katie Cole. She's amazing. She's delightful. Thank you so much for spending some time with us, man. We really appreciate it.
No, thank you. I appreciate you guys actually, having this show and just having a lot of just random and great people in your show. I've listened to a few of your podcasts, so I appreciate you having me on as a guest.
Oh, cool. Thank you, Katie. Guys, take care. We have another great show coming up next week. Please check out Katie Cole. She's the best, and we'll catch you next week. Take care, everybody. Bye, Katie.
Bye.